future. Remember, I said part of, right? But she says not the future of online gaming, but a part of the future of online gaming. And I think this is a very reasoned response. Big surprise from our frequent contributor, Astolia, who I greatly treasure as a part of our weekly Wringer community. You know, the future of, and this is what I was getting at, the future of online gaming, I think when WoW came out and when it started and it became really, really popular, everyone just assumed that every online game in the future would look at and resemble somehow the structure set up by WoW. Everything was going to be massive. It was just like when the internet came out, folks, right? Oh, all the problems of the world are going to be solved because they're all, people are going to have connectivity. It's not going to look anything like the past, and everything's going to be, everything's changed. No, right? No, that's not what's happened. Things have changed, but they run through all kinds of different iterations, and one need only look at the popularity of the Facebook IPO to understand exactly what that might mean. In any case, it's no doubt that MMOs are part of the landscape of gaming, and the landscape of online gaming for that matter, but they're not the future of gaming. There is still a tremendous amount of space for all the casual games that are out there. There's still a tremendous amount of space for the immersive single-player opportunities and experiences for these games, like Skyrim, right? And even games like Heavy Rain and things like that are very immersive and very story-driven. Versus, something like an MMO, which requires a ton of infrastructure, a metric ton of development, and art, and all kinds of just these amazing things that have to get done. And I just think it's absolutely a tremendous and huge investment that a lot of people can't fit. And therefore, the investment that's required to launch something like a viral, casual game, a la Zynga, right, is not nearly as much, and I think you can do much, much better with that. And as market forces change, gamers will always go toward MMOs. I'm not sure the public gravitates toward MMOs, and that's why it will always be a bit of a niche. My opinion, just saying. Sonic Rose talked about, abandonware MMORPGs being refashioned into single-player experiences. I love this thought. Because, I played through the original Guild Wars a couple times, and I love it. It's a great game. But what I would say is this. I always sat there and thought to myself as I beat the game, man, will I ever be able to do this again? Will I ever have this kind of experience again? Or as soon as those servers with, ArenaNet and NCSoft go down, will those things... will I just lose this experience forever? Will only be a memory? And I think part of the answer doesn't have to be yes. People can repurpose these things as single-player experiences, and in that regard, MMOs happen to be might take a weird little different positioning in the future, so that MMOs might be a part of our future, but they might look completely different than they look today. And I think that's awesome, right? I think that's a really cool concept, something I had never really thought about, and so I appreciate that thought. I'm not sure it speaks to the nature of the question I asked in terms of that specific response. She said many things that did pertain, but I think the idea of abandonware MMORPGs, or MMOs in general, being refashioned and repurposed is really cool. Davo Banjo talked about the idea of story and people making the game, not a lot of other things. The community, the interaction, the people, in terms of the community. When he says people, I think he means characters, right? So I thought this was a good point. Think about something like the Old Republic. The Old Republic has been built from the ground up as a game that is very story-centric, that is very narrative-centric. And it did very well to begin with and is really seeing some very hard times right now. BioWare is having a very difficult time keeping this thing afloat. And now they're looking at doing something like, investigating other franchises they have to be able to refashion them as MMORPGs, and I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But I think Davo Banjo comes up with a great point here, which is very much shared by the people that were on the online games panel at PAX, and that is that it's story, it's people, it's characters that make and drive the experience, and everything else becomes a kind of function ancillary to that mechanic, if you will, or that central tenet of a good game and a good immersive experience. I couldn't agree more, quite frankly, and I think that MMOs, that one of the reasons I can't stand MMOs, especially with PvE, I'm going to get to that in just a second because I know many of you are chomping at the bit for me to talk about this, is in PvE is where it becomes so freaking formulaic. New enemy, then I go and I hit 4, and then I hit 5, and then I hit 1, and then I hit 2, and then I hit 8, and they're dead. And if they're not dead, I wash, rinse, repeat until either I die, my team dies, or the monster dies, and we get the loot. And I just find that to be so awful. I just can't stand that kind of experience. Because at the end of the day, guys, if you reduced every single game out there, if you reduce it to its elements, for me, they're no longer fun. They're no longer interesting. Because it is part of the reason I love video games is because they remove me from that. D&D is awesome. But if you can take the mechanics of D&D and somehow disguise them in a real world setting, I would much rather do that. If any of you don't want to do that, you let me know. But I think one of the reasons we like it is because you make transparent the mechanics of the game in order to deliver an experience. And I think this is what Davo Banjo is getting at. And so the idea of it being very mechanical and being numbers driven and being, min-maxed and all that other crap, to me, makes it not fun at all. I want to create something that looks like somebody I would like to be, something I would like to do, experiences I would like to have. That's how I have fun in MMOs or any other kind of a game. Now casual games and other things obviously take a different tone and have a different function. But for these kinds of games, for RPGs, it's someone I would want to be. Now, Mog presented one argument that was immediately rebuffed by Unseasonably. And I'm going to try to make both of these arguments so that I can try to sort it out a little bit. Mog talked about PvP, the idea of player versus player in a strategic, very, very competitive environment, being the absolute apex, the pinnacle of gaming experiences. Love the passion. Love the drive there. And for people that I know that do PvP exclusively, have to say, they like it for exactly the same kinds of reasons. And I think that you are definitely onto something there, Mog. So for Mog, PvP is what makes MMOs enjoyable. Whether you're talking about an MMORPG, whether you're talking about any other kind of MMO. For example, if there was an MMO RTS, which is something they talked about in the online panel at PAX. If there's an MMO FPS, where you have something more like PlanetSide, where you have massive amounts of people waging war in real time. That it is the community. It is the interaction. It is all of these people coming together in this massive scale, and your ability to compete, combat, win, that drives people here. That is Mog's argument for PvP. Then you have Unseasonably, which I will not repeat her vitriolic hatred of PvP, but I will say this. She makes the point that PvE is more the basis of enjoyment for her. And PvP is stupid for her. The idea of getting together with this whole community of people and doing battle endlessly just to see who is better and, waging war to, just prove that you're better than somebody else or beat somebody that has more stuff than you or whatever the case might be because of your superior tactics is boring and awful to her. Instead, Unseasonably prefers the PvE environment where there is an immersive kind of experience where you can be cooperative, where you can take on environments, and where you can win in the long run by virtue of your capabilities in terms of beating scenarios, beating, the worlds that are out there, and that's her idea of fun. So those got kind of wrapped up one after another in the comments section. And I thought, this is a perfect juxtaposition of how people find enjoyment in games, and I think a perfect example of why an MMO that does both, or an MMO that does one or the other, could still survive in this market. Where I come down is not necessarily as important. What I wanted to say is this: it's interesting that a game could be so completely different in terms of the experiences that it offers, and a group in the MOG camp could absolutely love something, and a group in the unseasonably camp could absolutely hate something, and it still be ridiculously popular. Flip it over, vice versa. But I think, and I can't say this for sure, but I think if you took PvP out of MMOs, they would absolutely topple over and fall, because I don't think the PvE experience is what is keeping these suckers afloat. What keeps people paying, and what keeps people playing and paying their money every single month, is really fast-paced PvP. And then there's a kind of subset of that group. It's smaller. I don't know if it's really small, but I think it's a smaller group that play just for the experience of the PvE, right? The PvP people are the folks that keep this sucker afloat. I just think that. By the way, if I am going to come down on one side, I'm not on the PvP side, I'm on the PvE side. I hate PvP. PvP is the antithesis of what I like to do with MMORPGs. And when I get enjoyment out of it, it's because of the PvE environment, not the PvP environment. Alright, enough about that. You guys can wage war. If you want to start a forum topic to talk about PvP or PvE, I would love to see that happen and would love to contribute to it, because I have a lot more thoughts here, as you guys can imagine. I could talk all day about PvE versus PvE. But anyway, Vulcan Assassin said the following. I'm trying to wrap this up in one sentence as best as I can. If MMOs aren't part of the future, then why are companies with extremely popular franchises that are not MMOs looking into making MMOs out of them? A la Mass Effect, a la Elder Scrolls, right? All of these games, and I think Dragon Quest was also mentioned. Final Fantasy, right? Which has been an MMO now since 2001 or something like that. 2000, maybe it's been more than that, or more recent than that. Anyway, folks, it is a fantastic point. I think there is no doubt there that a company sees a certain amount of incremental revenue in the idea of taking something like Elder Scrolls and being able to build an MMO environment within which people can play a game and have fun in that universe online. Now, here's what I happen to think about what's going to happen with Elder Scrolls specifically. And this is neither here nor there, but I think it's an important point to make. Remember, the first Elder Scrolls game actually began as a PvP kind of game, right? It began as Arena, right? Now they've had to rebrand it because eventually it became this massive single-player experience, which the Arena was just kind of all the different places around Tamriel, right, and the forces of the kingdoms to come together, which is cool. But in any case, I really like the idea of them returning to that concept as a way to find incremental revenue. So, in other words, they're not making the sequel to Skyrim as being Skyrim MMO, right? I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think what they're looking at is creating an arena experience within the realm of their newfound technology, within the lore of Elder Scrolls, that is actually the arena concept they began with. So in other words, they get to take on the people that love Elder Scrolls, but they also get to bring on another segment of gamers that just like